So, welcome back, everybody. I feel that today, where we all, well, us who are not Orthodox Christians, celebrate the fact that someone was nailed to a tree because an external power didn't understand local politics and local customs, might be the perfect day to actually talk about the whole Stephen Erickson thing one final time. And I'll want to do this today in a more serious way. I don't know, not in an entirely serious way. I still have a beer, um, but in a more relaxed way, slightly more reflective, I guess. So let's do this. Cheers. All right. So here's the thing. We have the events of what happened, and I, as someone who tries to self-reflect, because self-reflection is the first step on the way to self-recrimination, and that's healthy, right? Thing is, I like to actually look at what happened over the last week, why it happened, and what the results were, and why the results were the results they were. Because maybe we can learn something from that. Most likely not, but we could. So, the reason I'm doing this is that I personally have issues with some of the stuff that was said, and in mostly with the way it was done. And that's like, there's one thing in there that I feel really should have been discussed in a proper way, but it wasn't. And then there's a lot of stuff that was just plain wrong or done with because of a lot of misinformation or lack of diligence and lack of research, which is the point where I'm sort of going to go with this today. The problem that I'm going to address today is the difference between reviewers and critics and the art of criticism in a way, and also the general way we interact with art. See, here's the thing. I understand the concept of a reviewer space. I have, like as I said before in one of the more angry videos, it's like I am writing music reviews, a lot of them, and I have, and like with the music industry, there is actual power, like economic power, behind a lot of releases, and there's an incentive to actually use that power, obviously, to influence reviews, right? It's something that has happened in, like, of where I know of, where, for example, I one specific label has like withdrew for a while, at least withdrew for a while, their albums from a review from a specific magazine because of one review or one comment one reviewer made about one album from said label, and the artist wasn't happy with that, and he complained. Um, yeah, they complained to the label, and the label then decided to punish the entire magazine. So there is definite need there for something as a reviewer space, in a way, to guarantee the idea of reviews of products. And this is basically what it boils down to. Of The review of products needs to be as independent and unbiased as possible, because people who consume reviews of products, who read those or watch those or whatever, do that to for to get an idea of whether they should spend their time, money, and all the other stuff on a specific product. This is a capitalist thing, right? This is in our economy of limited time, money, and attention. We need to decide where to put those things, how to spend those things. We can't obviously know all these things in advance, but what we can do is go to trusted sources, and ask those and use their judgment. Now, sometimes that works, most of the time it doesn't. But that's not the point here. The point is that, at least in theory, reviewers of products need to be independent. Ideally they get all their review copies through a system that makes sure that there's no influence. Now, for example, I'm not a reviewer here. I usually, when I write music reviews, it's like when I rate stuff there, because I have to, I usually, if I give something a good rating, even though I got like the promotional music, like the music for the review for free, I usually, for myself, because I want to do that, I usually give something an 8 out of 10 or higher only if I actually go and buy the physical album. Because I feel that's sort of just, a check in my head to make sure that I don't do that all the time or whatever. It's like putting my money where my mouth is sort of what I'm trying to say there. Now, obviously, that doesn't work all the time, and we can't say only people who buy a specific book are allowed to review it or whatever. That's not the point. The point, however, is that we need to make sure that there is no influence by the people who want to sell a specific piece of art. And this is the big issue here, right? People who want to sell a specific product have an interest in having good reviews, because that means that more people are likely to buy that product. We're talking about money here, nothing else but money. And in that regard, we need to have a reviewer space. We need to make sure that these things work. An artist sending their fans to someone's platform to harass them and all this other stuff. That's a problem, of course, and that's something that needs to be avoided. But that's for the room of reviews, which is, as I said, is sort of a short piece of text, whether written or spoken or whatever, a short piece of text with the intention of helping other people to decide whether they want to buy a specific product or not. And that product can be a video, can be a book, can be music, can be a fucking laundromat for whatever, right? That's not the point. But this is what you're doing when you are reviewing. That's not the same as critiquing, as criticism. It's also not the same as engaging with art. Those are different things. So the idea of a reviewer space is totally fine, and I get behind it. The next thing that we need to talk about is and I said this before, like the responsibility of the reviewer is, however, to make sure that they also try to make in our privilege, because as I said, I'm a reviewer of music, in our privileged situation, we don't abuse that privileged situation. It's privilege. Usually we get stuff for free. We get stuff. People trust us. There is that relation of trust, in a way, of our readers, watchers, whatever you want to call them, towards us. There is that responsibility of trust, and we need to make sure that that is valid and that we don't abuse it. That means getting our facts straight. That means looking at it, like doing research. It's like when I review a piece of music, when I review an album, I totally check the band. I look at stuff they did before. I look at who the label is. I do all of that stuff, because I feel that judging a piece of art as something of a product, because that's what it is in that situation, is very much about doing that research. I think people expect me to do that. So there's that. Critiquing is, however, something else. Criticism is something else, and engaging with art is something else. It's something that most of us can do, but only a few are actually qualified. And here we come to something that I feel like sort of at the heart of it. I'm trying to let this all make sense in the end, right? But the point is that you can study literary criticism. You can study literature. That's something I haven't done. Sometimes I wish I had, But on the other hand, sometimes I feel maybe it would have just been more time spent in university with a degree that won't get me a job, just like the stuff that I'm doing anyway. But the point is that we go that literature is something that you can learn stuff about. You can develop skills, find tools especially. You can read your Joseph Campbell. You can disagree with Joseph Campbell. I do. You can read your Northrop Frye. You can disagree with Northrop Frye, which I don't. But there is more to that than just me going on the internet and telling you why that I like a specific book. But in general, you should always trust me when I say I like a specific book, because I have really good reasons, which is my impeccable taste, right? So go read more Ian MacDonald and Cameron Hurley, because she's absolutely amazing. But once again, that's not my point. My point is that once we start to engage with the literature or any form of art on a critical level, we want to look at what is done there. We start to judge the craft of the artist in a way, their skill. We look at the impact certain things have on us and so forth. Once we do that, we can certainly look at ideas like death of the author, but we can also discard that, because just because someone wrote death of the author doesn't mean we all have to actually subscribe to that. I mean, the guy was French, for fuck's sake. Well, why do we like? Just because Roland Barthes wrote this doesn't mean it is the law. And this is like the next thing. Like, another way would be to actually look at art, and something that I personally, from my philosophy background, right, feel is very interesting. Is like to figure out what kind of knowledge in a philosophical sense, that is, what we can actually take out, what kind of meaning, what kind of stuff we can take out of art, of books in specific. Or what does reading the Malazan Book of the Fallen, in this case, for example, what does it get me? And there's a lot of stuff that you can figure out there. It's like a lot of stuff is what you as the reader, or I as the reader, take out of it. But there's also stuff that, we can only get out of it by engaging deeper with it, by getting context to it, by actually, talking to the author in a way. Because it's something that artists in general, artists have always done. Artists talk about their art. Artists meet and talk about their art with other artists. Artists meet with critics and talk about art. Artists go and, write books about their art. That is a thing that has always happened. Nowadays, we have the situation that we can do that in real time and over distances because of the internet. And the situation that developed over time with Steven Erikson and the Malazan fan base in the Malazan community on YouTube was exactly that. We were debating these books with the author. And now there was no explicit consent ever, asked and given for Steven Erikson to engage with us. But on the other hand, it was implicit, because any one of us could have totally, at any point in time, deleted Steven Erikson's comments. And actually, and this is an interesting thing, I actually got a comment from Steven Erikson a while ago when I spoke about the depiction of brokenness and the crippled God. And I spoke about that, and spoke about my personal experience with disability. And Steven Erikson posted a comment and asked if he could actually share, if you could share my video, or if you could share videos on that topic from me in the future. He actually asked for that consent, and I did that, which I absolutely appreciated. And yes, the interactions like these show us that in general there was within that specific community that is about debating those books, looking at those books, and it's definitely not above criticizing those books and arguing with the author about those books. Within that specific community, that consent was for the author to engage with us was there. And the few times I interacted with Steven Erikson were very much, he went to incredible lengths to make that interaction feel as much as possible like an interaction between equals, because it obviously never is if when a fan talks to an author, but he made every effort to level that playing field in a way. And that point that I'm trying to bring across here, and I did that yesterday in a really angry way, and I feel I try to do it in a proper way today, is that we had a specific small community, a very small community, where the interactions between fans and the author in arguing and debating these pieces of art were part of the community. Now, whether that's good or not is a different thing, but like every one of us opted into being in that community. And that interaction, which was I would say a very unique thing that made this specific community something special in a way, has been taken away from us by outsiders. And that's I guess the hard where a lot of the vitriol comes from. Because I mean, the Malazan community is a big community. There's assholes in there. Maybe I'm one of them. Point is, there's toxic fans in there. There's gatekeeping in there that I find highly problematic. There's all of that in there. We obviously have nowadays the question of how much a person is responsible for what their fan base does. But I feel that that's like the next thing. It's like Steven Erikson did not do that. And I said that in like a first video. It's like I felt bad for and the person actually doing that commented under that video. It's like the way that one commenter was sort of that Erikson kind of called out was then like picked upon by the fan base or parts of the fan base on Facebook was definitely problematic, because that's exactly the kind of thing that shouldn't happen. But it wasn't Steven Erikson who did that, and I feel like if at any point in time the person that comment was sort of pointed towards, yeah, I would have complained that that stuff would have been taken down. I hope so, at least. The next important thing there is that the debate this all escalated about, right? The entire debate about the character of Felicin has been an ongoing debate within our circle of Malaz Tube or VooTube or whatever you want to call it, right? There have been several videos defending Felicin. There have been people arguing against Felicin. This is an ongoing thing. Steven Erikson talked about it before. Everyone talked about it before. It's an ongoing debate. And Steven Erikson writing another essay, one that is extremely vulnerable and personal, right? He talks about very, very personal things there that no one, forced him to talk about. And the fact that was just another step within that debate, within that long ongoing debate. Now for someone from the outside, it may look like an author calling out someone. I realize that is possible, but the point is, those people, Bethany and Line in this case, Line, I have no idea, Lynn probably. I'm sorry if I pronounce the name wrong, because I'm coming to that later on. Are outsiders. They are not part of the community. They use that for something else, and that's what I tried to express yesterday with my video, with my angry video. It's like it felt like someone from the outside, from a larger, like from a point of more power, because we are all small YouTubers here in the Malazan community. And I still consider myself part of the Malazan community, even though I talk about Gilgamesh and stuff sometimes. But the point is, like, none of us has more than like 5,000 followers, 5,000 subscribers. None of us is even as is big, really. We had us this ongoing thing there, and then suddenly someone from outside with way more subscribers and such, and therefore a bigger platform and more power in the metric of YouTube power, came and took that away for no reason, because those comments led to Steven Erikson deciding to not interact with us on YouTube. Now, should he? That's not the point. The point is that someone who is not part of a specific community comes there with their ideas of proper behavior, with rules, like behavioral rules. They don't that are not the ones of the community they are suddenly hurting. And that's the argument that I was trying to make there yesterday in a rather angry way. It's like, I'm not in general against the idea of reviewer spaces. I'm just saying that the way it was used there was by people who didn't understand what they were talking about, because they didn't do the research that was needed for it. And that's a problem, and that's a big problem there. Now, obviously, it created drama. I profited a ton from it, right? I made an angry video yesterday, and it gave me almost 100 new subscribers, which is like a ton. I'm super thankful for all of the people that have subscribed. I wish you had done it before, when I was doing like actual good content and not just raging, but I'm thankful nonetheless. But once again, like, the anger of the fan base was very much, and I feel that's important, is very much about that feeling of invasion of our space, of invading and policing our space, which may not have been the intention, but that's how it felt to a lot of us, because we are the ones suffering the consequences. People that decide not to read the Malazan Book of the Fallen are not the people who suffer and talk about it on the internet, are not the people suffering the consequences. The consequences are suffered by us, the people who talk about the Malazan Book of the Fallen and who have suddenly been robbed of the opportunity of talking with the author about that. And that's the damage that was done, and that's something that enraged me, at least, very much, apart from like the next big thing that we need to talk about, and that's just the personal damage that we all feel. And now it gets weird because we're gonna go into like the parasocial relationship kind of thing, but it's like, we as the Malazan community were very much appreciative of how open Steven Erikson in his essays was with his personal like feelings, with his life's experiences and everything that led into this piece of art. Those of you who have not read the essays he put out, like, those are extremely vulnerable. He's talking, that's the bit there, and being rebuked without proper like arguments in an unprofessional, dishonest way by someone for that just feels, on a moral level, extremely bad, right? That's the second thing that added, so to speak, like insult to injury, right? It's like we've lost our chance to actually debate this piece of art with the artist to get to make like to get more meaning out of it for us. We've lost that, and that person, Steven Erikson, the artist that we are as a fandom obviously are highly appreciative of, was treated atrociously by people who didn't know, and a lot of that could have been avoided by just doing a little bit more research. Which brings me back to the whole thing of responsibility, because it is the responsibility of us who have platforms to be diligent, to do our research. I am, well, I have not made a review of The Wheel of Time because I've only read the first book and I hated it, and I read it 3 times now. I still hate it. I am not going to say the rest of The Wheel of Time is shit, though, because I don't know that. I am trying to look into stuff before I talk about it, like bare minimum research, and that's what neither Bethany nor Line, whatever, did. Then there is the appeal of those 2 videos that were just problematic, and I go through both quickly. The problem that I spoke about yesterday with Bethany's video, the first video, is that she spends most of the time talking about Steven Erikson attacking Alan, which was wrong because he didn't attack Alan. It wasn't even about Alan, it was also about someone else, and so forth. And lumps him in with a bunch of other highly problematic writers. And it felt so random. It's like, I have not looked into the Sam Sykes thing because I've never read a book by Sam Sykes. So I'm not going to judge that, go on that. But you lump him in, you lump the author who not even called out by name someone. You lump that one in with J.K. Rowling, world famous transphobe, someone with allegations of sexual assault. Like, come on, that's borderline character assassination that you're doing there, and that's the next big thing there. It's like, and I'm not gonna go back on the whole, like, talking about not reading Harry Potter and the Cursed Child in 2021 being a, like, that's just so bad. Like, seriously, that book is bad. We know the book is bad. We know the book is not even written by J.K. Rowling, and we know that she's a transphobe. We've known all of that for years now. So declaring it now is, I don't know, just dumb. And it feels dishonest. Anyway, so there's that. The other big thing, and that's the other video, and I feel really awkward talking about. It's problematic that I'm talking about it, but I feel it has to be said. And that is the 2 parts. Like the idea of the reviewer space and so forth, I feel I've dealt with, and I've tried to explain why it doesn't apply to the Malazan community, because we're not a review space. But the other thing that's important here is the discussion of that scene of non-consensual sex in Toll the Hounds. And that scene is problematic, and I really would have appreciated a serious discussion about it. And once I reach that scene in my reread, I will certainly call it out, because there is that scene is a problem. It would have been even more amazing if we could have gotten Steven Erikson's reasoning behind writing that scene. Or maybe he would just say, like, no, yeah, that was a mistake. I was dumb and wrong. That all of that would have been possible, but it's no longer because of the fallout. The other thing there is, but that's like, once again, the platform argument thing there is that the way it was portrayed in the video as a dramatic reading with background music and all, that's not like appropriate for that. That's once you do that to make it an attack on a person, and that's like the next thing that comes after that, is to draw from that one scene. We're talking about one scene within a 10-volume series, to draw any conclusions from that one written down scene to the character of the author is so dishonest, is so disingenuous, right? Like, I mean, if I look at that, like, every author worth their salt must be a terrible person, because every author worth their salt have written about terrible things and not always just openly condemned them all the time. And that's not how you do that. You do that if you really just set out to character assassinate someone. And that felt so bad, because and that rankled me so much, because I want to debate about talk about how problematic that scene is. I want that, but by linking it to something that is so obviously problematic and so obviously disingenuous and dishonest, you make the discussion of that problematic scene so much more difficult. You damage that case as well, and that's like the last part of it. It's like that is not about it suddenly becomes clear that no one in this discussion wanted to talk about art, but wanted to do one thing, like two things. On the one hand, make themselves look good by telling everyone which books they won't read anymore because of um, their feelings of morality. And the second one being just like the malicious character assassination of an author that apparently you don't know anything about. Because, like, the sheer gall of calling him out, calling him a sexist because of that one scene, while at the same time calling him out for writing an essay where he kind of very openly explains that maybe a lot of the hate a specific character Felicity gets is because of inherent sexism of a lot of the readers that hate her. That's just like problematic, to say the least. It made a lot of people very, very angry, especially, yeah, just like seriously, step back, and this is sort of where we're going to end this today. This has been rambly and all that, but I try to not be aggressive. And it feels like ranting or rambling is like the only two options I have in life. But my point is that we have a situation where two people who are doing this as a business. And that's like the other thing, right? After you reach, I don't know, a certain level on YouTube, a certain level of platform, this becomes a business. It may not be the main business of you that you actually live from, but it's still, you run a Patreon, your videos are monetized. That's a business. And that's the point, like, we're creating this kind of attention leads to monetary win. Like, there is an incentive to do that thing, and the incentive is to get money, because attention equals money in that concept. And that makes these kind of, that in the end, like from where I'm sitting, that means that if you try to make moral arguments, you need to make doubly sure or triply sure that those arguments are sound and not suspect at all, because there's always that "but you also do it for money" thing in the background, which is the question of professionalism, and that wasn't done here. And that's I guess where the anger and outrage of the community kind of came together in the end. Is like we get something taken away, we get someone whom we respect a lot personally attacked in a way that is wrong, and it all seems to be done. I'm saying seems because then I'm not saying those were the actual motivation. I'm saying that that's how it looks from the outside. And since we're talking about videos on YouTube, the looks the thing, right? And it all seems to be done from dubious motivations, which may just be for like financial in the end. And people don't like that, and that's the sad truth of it, and that's why there was so much outrage from the community. But the big thing that I want to end this on, because I guess the other thing is, like, the Malazan community has always been about being open, being honest, and being vulnerable and sharing those things. And we were extremely appreciative of Steven Erikson doing exactly that to us, being open with us, being engaging with us, being vulnerable himself with with us. And someone just brutally, dishonestly slapping him in the face, like really punching him in the face there, so to speak. That's the really sad bit there, because above and beyond anything else, what really happened is that two people who have no interest in anything this is about just emotionally hurt Steven Erikson, a person, a human being. Now, I know that certain people on YouTube will say that Steven Erikson is not a person because, and so forth, but I'll use this name and not his actual like real name, because I might get into trouble, and I also not want to assume anything on his emotional state. But from where we all are standing, someone who was really open and honest with us and vulnerable and bared his emotions to us was just slapped in the face for it, and that sucks. And I feel shitty, I feel outraged, and I feel angry, because that shouldn't happen to anyone, not to me, not to Steven Erikson, not to Bethany or Lynn or anyone. Try to be like actually decent human beings for once. That's sort of the takeaway there that I try to when I don't get angry, try to get across. Is like, we were doing something. People that didn't know about it just thought it was a good idea to smash someone in the face, and while being just like while not being extremely good at what they're doing, like leaving behind any kind of professional standards of professionalism that actually like people that interact with art in a non-social media world would have, because that's like the end of there. It's like, while I appreciate the fact that the internet has given everyone a voice, and that's important, that's amazing, that's finally we all have a voice, not only like privileged bastards like me. What it also means is there's no longer any like outside control or standards or anything, and we've just seen how that can actually be a problem. But in the end, it boils down to be nice, be aware that someone we as the Malazan community appreciate a lot just got hurt real hard, and the community also got hurt, and that's the end of it basically. It's like I just wish it would not have happened. I wish we could actually have a severe discussion of the problematic aspects of that One Told the Hound scene. And I wish people would be more honest and would be more like professional about the stuff they do. But apparently we don't, so yeah, well. Anyway, that's it for today. I'll talk to you tomorrow about something else, because this is the end of this drama. Until then, cheers.